One of the biggest stories to hit California, especially here in the Bay Area, is the question of Pacific Gas and Electric and fires. Joining us is State Senator Jerry Hill. A judge just ordered PG&E to clean up its electrical lines. We are talking about 125,000 miles of poles, wires, transformers, the likes of which we see here, that are in danger of sparking trees and fires. And he wants it done by next year. The estimated cost of that is anywhere between $75 and $150 billion that you and I will likely have to pay for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have to look at why did the judge do this? Why did he make that ruling and want that done? I think he's so upset with the fires that we've seen over the last 2 years, the devastation, the loss of life. He wanted to see something happen because he hadn't been seeing things happen. PG&E hasn't been doing it. The PUC hasn't. So he was going to take action because he had the role. I think he was a little out of his league in terms of his recommendations because it's, I think, physically impossible to look at 125,000 miles of wires in the next 6 months. The cost is extraordinary. But he felt something had to be done. And I agree with him in that sense. This is maybe unrealistic, but it certainly got attention to it.
Okay, if it's unrealistic, what realistically can we do? If we have people living out in these outlying areas, if we're going to be running electricity into them, if we have these trees that we don't like to cut down, we really don't as a state, we don't.
I know.
What is realistically can we do? Because there's going to be another fire season next year.
Well, there is going to be another fire season, as we've had every year. But what PG&E needs to do is use the industry best practices that San Diego has done for the last 8 years. They learned after their big fires of 2007, the witch fires, they learned what they had to do, de-energize the system, turn the power off. Now, that's an inconvenience for a lot of people, but it also saves lives at the end of the day, so they can de-energize. They have reclosure policies. PG&E has ignored those historically. They have not done them in 2015. In 2017, they did not do any of that. They did it one time in 18.
So should they be mandated to do that?
Absolutely, and the PUC is now establishing some standards that would be necessary and requirements around when that should be done and what they have to do to protect people. People on medical devices and things need special attention.
But let's go back to the lines themselves. We've heard everything from maybe they should be undergrounded to like you said, turning off. There is going to be a cost to that.
There is.
So how much are our bills going to go up in order to, as they say, fortify this system, make it safe?
Well, the best would be undergrounding, but that's almost prohibitive. But steel poles is an example, better connectors. It's going to cost us a lot more. I don't know how much per month we're going to have to pay, but we will be paying more.
Is it fair for those of us who live here in the cities to be paying for somebody's service out there and what's needed to be done to make them safe?
Well, you're paying for what you're getting as well, because those wires that are bringing the power to us. Those transmission lines come from other parts of the state and other parts of the country to provide that power to us. So we're all in this together. But the point is, if PG&E is not negligent, if they are not negligent, then we all should share in the responsibility of that because we all benefit from the power. But that hasn't been the case in most cases. They are negligent and illegally acting as a provider of utilities. So when they're negligent and irresponsible and not prudent and not following industry standards, they should pay. Their shareholders should pay, not ratepayers.
PG&E says that it's doing the best that it can in these circumstances and that they're looking forward to trying to come to a mutual agreement.
We've heard that
right?
one before, Phil.
Well, we're hearing it again. Declaring bankruptcy, good or bad for those of us who pay the rates?
Well, I think it's bad for us who pay the rates because what it will do is stay. PG&E will then lose a lot of the contracts that they have. They'll have to give those up. It will be the cost at the end of the day because we want to make sure that those victims are made whole to some extent.
The fire victims?
The fire victims that they'll be able to.
We will have to pay that. We will likely
there
pay
may
that?
be some costs, some sharing of of that cost down the road, because the governor appointed a blue ribbon committee to look at how we're going to securitize that and socialize the cost of
securitize and socialize. What did you just say? You're going to figure out a way for us to pay for other people's.
Well, you know, some people lost a lot. I mean, and they lost their lives. They lost everything. Some were underinsured, and I think we want to make sure that they're not going to suffer the rest of their lives over this. And so we're trying to look at that, but it's not necessarily going to all come.
Can the
from
governor
PG&E.
keep PG&E from declaring bankruptcy?
Well, he could if he wanted to bail them out tomorrow and do that on Monday and say we're not going to.
Well, isn't that what we're talking about? If we're going to make everyone whole, if no one's going to suffer as a result of the fires and PG&E's bankruptcy, that's in fact would it be a bailout, or is that
it would be a bailout? But if you prevent PG&E from going bankrupt, you're going to have to bail them out, let them know they're going to have the resources and the money to stay in business. But most of us feel that they have that right now, that there's no need to go bankrupt. They're just going bankrupt because they want to take the easy way out, and they want to stick someone else with the liability and someone else with the cost, rather than the shareholders at the end of the day or the company itself. This is not in the best interest of California.
So legally, we can't stop them from declaring bankruptcy.
I don't believe we can.
Okay.
And the governor said, let them do what they want to do.
The only thing is provide them with an alternative, and that is some sort of assurance or bailout. Now, if PG&E, one of the reasons why the governor is concerned about this, it's not just fire, it's not just liability, it's the fact that Pacific Gas and Electric has also led the way in green energy, something that has been huge on the agenda of former Governor Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom. They're bringing in that power that people like, the electric cars, the stations for
Absolutely.
that could be at risk as well.
It's very much at risk, because right now some of those companies that are providing that power to PG&E, they're close to bankruptcy, because those contracts will be null and void as soon as the bankruptcy
So
is
if
filed.
PG&E goes bankrupt, then the entire solar and alternate energy companies and industry could suffer as well.
Drastically affected. They could
drastically affected. Well, how does that play in with everybody?
Well, and that's another problem with the bankruptcy, and that's why these financial management companies are telling PG&E you should not go bankrupt. You don't have a need to go bankrupt. You have the resources. You have the assets.
But it sounds like they're holding the cards.
PG&E is definitely holding the cards, just as they did in the last time.
Okay, so not only does it affect the fire victims and going forward with making the system safe, it could also affect the entire emerging solar and alternative energy.
Absolutely, and that's why there's such a concern. But PG&E is only interested in what's in their bottom line interest, their self-interest. Heck with California. That's what I've seen and what we saw in 2001, and we're seeing that today as well. They're going to do whatever's in their best interest, not what is in the best interest of Californians.
And that's going to be unfolding this week. What's your bet? Do you think they're going to do it?
I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to. Yeah. And then we'll have to deal with it and let it play out. But at the end of the day, the PUC can determine and has to approve whatever structure and reorganization is planned. That's where we hold the cards at the end.
Well, that'll be an interesting shift considering the history of the PUC. Yeah. All right, ending on a not too happy note, Cherry Hill, State Senator. We'll be looking forward to see what happens this week.